that the views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and guests and not necessarily the opinions of the owners of Global Communications Network and the operators of this radio station.
Today can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madera Street. Accessories provided by Chevette Williamson Jewelry. Standout jewelry for standout women. Good afternoon and welcome to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. I am your host, Michelle Malcolm. As always, it's a tremendous pleasure to be in your company. Thank you so much for tuning in today. So today is being observed in some quarters as Child Abuse Prevention Month or Child Abuse Awareness Month. And we're going to be talking about child abuse, what it looks like, what it is, and what we need to be doing as a collective to put an end to the scourge of child abuse. For those of you who would have tuned into the show yesterday, you would have learned how even from within a mother's womb, a child is impacted by the environment in which it lives. The trauma of childhood is seen to have an impact on that child, not just during their childhood years, but throughout their lives. And there are studies that show that it even has an impact on a child's physical health. And so we understand that when it comes to this whole question of child abuse, we have to take this seriously, particularly in our society where it seems to be an all-out attack on the welfare of our children. We've heard it time and time again. Some people may even think it's a cliche, but we've heard the saying, the children are the future. Well, if that is the case, then what does that speak to the future of the Bahamas when we take into consideration the level of abuse, neglect, whether physical or mental or sexual abuse, that is being rained down on the children of the Bahamas? Far too many of them are suffering in silence. And I thought it was important for us to do this show today because the children are our future. And if our children are suffering in silence, eventually that trauma is going to spill out somehow. And chances are it may play out when they are adults. And so it speaks to a very serious forecast for what our nation could possibly look like if we don't take this problem under control, if we don't address this problem, if we don't stop sweeping it under the rug and look it squarely in the eyes and say, enough is enough. We're going to deal with this. So that's what we're going to be talking about on the show today. And my guests today are Shervonne Hollis, who is an advocate, certified trained facilitator, stewards of children, co-founder of Save Our Children Alliance. Also joining us today, Debi Ray Rivers, survivor, founder, and executive director of SCARS Bermuda. We are also being joined by Denise M. Major, a sexual, reproductive, and rights advocate. And last but by no means least, Cindy Godet, activist, survivor, co-founder of Save Our Children Alliance. Ladies, welcome to GPS.
Pleasure to be here, Michelle.
It is.
So the first thing that we need to do is we need to define what is abuse, because there are some people who question whether or not a person simply disciplining their child, say spanking their child, is that considered abuse? Where do you draw the line? What defines abuse, and how do you separate abuse from physical discipline? I need anybody to jump in and explain that to us, please.
Good afternoon. Debbie,
Yes.
would like to take this one?
Well, I would like to talk about sexual abuse in particular. I think any abuse to a child is harmful. Children were not meant to come into this world to be abused in any way. They are precious. They should be considered as gems. There is a big difference between disciplining and loving and abusing. I think, as a child, we did need disciplining, but we can do that with love. I can tell you the definition of child sexual abuse is any sexual act between an adult and a minor, or between two minors when one exerts power over the other. So forcing, coercing, persuading a child to engage in any type of sexual act. It can include non-contact acts such as exhibitionism, exposure to pornography, voyeurism, and communicating in a sexual manner by phone or by internet. But I think we can all agree that abuse of any kind is harmful to a child.
And when we think about abuse, we normally think about sexual and physical abuse, but we commonly forget neglect is abuse. We verbally abuse our children, each other on a regular basis, and it's accepted because it's a part of culture, so to speak. Any form of maltreatment towards another person. So it could be physical, sexual, verbal. We grew up in a culture where a cut up ain't kill us. We say this to this day, cut up never kill nobody. But what long-term damage did that have on? We have evolved where discipline is not just physical discipline. We can find more creative, effective ways to discipline our children.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so what do you say? I'm glad you touched on it, because our society, our community, we many of us grew up, being physically disciplined by our parents. That was just the way that it was done. I guess you could say that discipline has evolved. Jason, I need your assistance because my computer's freezing. So can you put the shot with everybody on there, please? Some would argue that discipline, there have been more creative ways, but like you said, others will say, well, I'm still here. I'm not, a serial killer. I got spanked as a kid. So at what point, is it wrong to spank children in any form? Is that what you're suggesting? Because a lot of people in our community, especially, and in the Caribbean, I'm sure, would question whether or not you guys are, off your rocker with this. At what point?
Not suggesting that. Okay, so I'm going to use my personal experience.
Okay.
I have a 13-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 22-year-old. My 22-year-old cut up for days, because that is all I knew. A 16-year-old, a boy child, I believe that a firm hand, as a single mother, a firm hand was the way to go. But with him, I stopped disciplining him in terms of beating, like when he was 13, because it made no sense. I was getting tired. I was doing more damage to me than to him, and the behavior wasn't changing.
Right.
My 13-year-old, I've never spanked her. But with her, I found that things as simple as taking away her devices, punishing her in other ways are more effective. We had an incident where, out of anger, I struck, and her poor heart broke. She didn't know how to take that. And she was like, Mommy, only animals and not even animals should be beaten. So if our children can communicate with us on that level, why are we beating them? Why are we, as adults, we don't want anyone hitting on us or talking to us harshly. Why are we doing it to our children? So no, I'm not saying beating is outright wrong, but there's a way to discipline. Because I know a lot of people could jump on this and be like, oh, well, your children's soft or they rude or like things like that. There are different ways, and we have evolved to the point where we can be more creative with the ways we discipline our children and that are more effective. And the funny thing is, I used to get beaten for days. Like, did it really change anything? I still acted out. It just made me get more sneaky with it, with the things that I did. It didn't stop me from doing the things that I did. I just got more creative.
Some would argue that you cannot reason with a toddler, for instance. So how
Why
do you,
not? Why not? Why can't you?
listen, I'm just asking these questions, not to say that this
Yeah.
is you, but we have to have this conversation because people are listening to this show and they don't understand what you're saying. So we need to, I'm trying to present it in a way that everybody can understand, because I heard once of someone was talking about, when you're talking about disciplining a child, it's important to understand what currency is important to that child, because everybody has a currency. So if you say to a child, for instance, if you don't behave, I'm not going to let you go to school tomorrow. The kid is like, well, hell, I just ain't behave. School ain't that important to me. So why should I care? You know what I mean? That school is not a currency for that child. But if you say to the child, if the child has a favorite toy, for instance, and you say, if you don't stop this behavior, you're going to lose that toy for a month. Now the kid has something to think about, because that toy is a currency of value to the kid. So I need you guys to break that down for us, because some people will argue you cannot reason with a 2-year-old. So the only language that 2-year-old is going to understand is a little swat on the bottom. How do you respond to that?
Beating is a lazy way to go. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Denise. I think that a lot of parents, particularly in our society, abuse their children under the guise of discipline. Let's be clear. If you hit a toddler, that's abuse. And no, you cannot reason, so to speak, with a toddler the way you would reason with an adult. But toddlers, children in general, require patience. They're babies, for God's sake. You cannot expect for a small child to have the same level of reasoning and understanding that you do. And so that's where patience and understanding comes into play. And unfortunately, in our society, we don't believe in speaking. We don't believe in having a sensible conversation. But even before we get to that, in our society, we already believe that children are beneath us. So we do not believe that children are deserving of respect. We don't believe that we ought to honor the bodies and the minds and the feelings of our children. And we believe that our children are our property, so to speak. So if we hit them, lash out in anger at them, we speak to them in a way that's hurtful or harmful to them, we don't necessarily believe that we're doing anything wrong, because we're already looking at this person as if they don't have the same value and worth as we do. So that mindset from the beginning is going to be very dangerous when we deal with our children. My 10-year-old, for example, she's not a discipline problem at all. I don't hit her, neither does my husband. And the way that we raise our children, we believe in our children speaking their minds and being very expressive, explaining to us how they feel. You know, children have feelings, they have their own minds, they have their own ideas. And unfortunately, most of us were raised in this ridiculous children should be seen and not heard, type of raising. And it's so unbelievably stupid. And it's dangerous because you're not giving that child a voice, for one. You are putting that child in a position to be silent if something were to happen to them. You're putting your child in a position to be afraid of you, and that should never happen. We should never be afraid of our children should never be afraid of us. They should never be afraid to come to us and talk to us. And then, of course, you have your hyper-religious people who always come with the spare the rod, spoil the child scripture, which, by the way, never had anything to do with hitting a child. But that also goes back to the fact that many of us in this society are simply intellectually lazy. And so we don't even bother to understand what that particular scripture means. We just attribute it to beating because we want to make sure that the Bible advocates what we do, even if it means abuse. And so we will use that scripture and we will, attach that to hitting children until the cows come home.
So I need you to break it down for us, Cindy. What does that scripture mean?
That scripture that scripture was about change and correction in terms of seeing your child, or a child, didn't even necessarily have to be your child in the way that particular scripture was written, going in the wrong direction and using love in terms of a correction. It never had anything to do with beating. Now, of course, there's another scripture that's used. I think it says something to the effect of a rod across the back of a child will kind of steer their behavior, or something to that effect. I'm not quoting it verbatim. That one is a little bit problematic in my opinion, but just that particular scripture, spare the rod, spoil the child, it had to simply do with correction. And here's the thing. If the only way you can correct your child is by hitting them, you've already failed as a parent.
Wow.
You've already failed.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, in our defense too, when we become parents, we do things based on how it happened when we were children.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it takes a lot of learning. We don't automatically become great parents immediately. It takes some hit and misses sometimes, and we have to accept that. Yes, we're going to get some things wrong, but we need to recognize when it's wrong. So again, looking back, I know how I felt as a child being beaten or talked down to. Why continue the cycle? Why do this to my children? Why do it? It's no shame in saying, hey, this is not the right way to go. So let's make it different. Let's do something differently. And when you said that we can't reason with a 2-year-old, I feel as though you can. We just are lazy and don't want to take the time. And Cindy said it also, it requires a lot of patience. Yes, you feel as though you're going to talk yourself weak, but it's worth it. It's worth it to take the time and have a conversation with your 2-year-old. No, you should not do this. And when they do it again tomorrow, no, do not do this. This is why. And then eventually they will get it. So yes, you can reason with a 2-year-old. It just takes time.
So how big a problem is child abuse? Well, first of all, is April Child Abuse Prevention Month strictly a United States recognized month, or is this beyond the United States?
No, it's Child Abuse Protection Month in the Bahamas as well.
Okay,
I
all right.
wish I had the stats. I'm going to try pull it up as we go.
Mhm.
But yeah, we are recognizing it this month in the Bahamas as well.
And I just need our audience to understand, and even if you don't have the exact stats in front of you, how big of a problem this is.
It is a huge problem in our country. I remember being a part of a presentation where the presenter was from the SCAN unit, Suspected Child Abuse and Neglect unit, and they were saying our highest incidence of abuse in the Bahamas are physical abuse and sexual abuse, and then neglect, followed by neglect. And the unit is a very small unit, and I don't understand why we are not giving them the resources that they need to tackle this problem. We have a huge problem. Minister Wilchcombe just made mention of it in the news the other day in reference to what they're seeing in Grand Bahama, where our children's homes, Grand Bahama and in New Providence, are filled to capacity. We have nowhere to put these children because of the things that are taking place in their homes.
Wow.
So it's a huge problem in the Bahamas.
I see a commenter on Facebook says, I believe it varies according to the nature of the child. Every child is different, so therefore each course of action has to be different. Now, I'm not sure if that person is suggesting that one course of action that should be used is physical punishment based on the child's personality. I'm not sure if that is what the person is suggesting. But I agree.
Michelle, when it's breaking the skin or leaving a bruise on the child, come on now, we have to agree that's too far.
Right.
No one should be hit in their face or in their head. Do you know the trauma that can possibly cause, even death? Like, yes. And again, culturally, I see another comment where culturally, and we come from a slave, we still have the slave mentality. Yes, these things were instilled in us, but we can change them. We just need to take the time to do so.
Debbie, what are your stats like where you are located?
So we did our own community survey. I mean, statistics are based on retrospective studies, right? Because most children don't tell. So statistics vary. But we did a study in 2017, and we did a community survey actually with our with one of our health departments, and we had educated. At that point, we had educated already 5% of our adult population. So people had been educated in what child sexual abuse is. So specifically addresses child sexual abuse. We don't go out our lane. That's what we know, and that's what we educate our community on, is preventing the sexual abuse of children. So in 2017, we sent the survey out. We had trained about 5,000 people at that point, and we sent the survey out to the 5,000 people we had trained, and we gave them an option to take this survey. We're a small community. People don't want other people to know they've been abused. So, we had to let them know that they had a choice whether they wanted to take the survey, and we were going to simply ask them if they've ever been sexually molested and what was the relationship, how old they were. And according to our community survey, which did not surprise us, 1 in 3 people in Bermuda had said that they had been sexually molested by their 18th birthday.
Wow. Wow.
And that, to be perfectly honest, that number did not surprise us at SCARS at all, because I've spoken in the 10 years that we have been in existence in Bermuda, I've spoken to thousands of adult survivors of child sexual abuse. The problem is sexual abuse is very shameful, very silencing. And so it's hard to really get statistics, because people don't want their personal business out there. They don't want other people to know they were abused. There's a lot of pain around that.
Mm-hmm.
But that number did not surprise us. But one child abused is personal business out there. They don't want other people to know they were
Shervonne, you started to say something?
I'm sorry, I missed the question. I can hear it.
No, I thought I saw Shervonne about to say something. I don't know if her internet is freezing. It seems so. Okay, 1 in 3, that's a lot. And when you consider that, like you said, it's underreported because most people don't want that known, then 1 in 3 is low compared to what is really happening because of the underreporting. And this is scary because the long-term impacts of that will be seen in the society, whether it is somebody becoming an offender because they were victims as children, whether it is that person closing off from society or becoming antisocial. I mean, the impacts on society will be felt. And matter of fact, one of the reports that we're going to be talking about that we're going to air a little later on in the show is looking at the science of neglect and how it impacts not just that child, but it goes on to impact the entire community. So this is something that we all need to really be concerned about because it's not just having an effect on that particular isolated situation, but this is something that will impact the entire nation going forward. Now, I can hear people arguing right now that a part of the reason why we see so many cases of what we in the older generation would consider disrespect to parents, etc., is because people didn't take the time to discipline the children when they were small. And so, we have the I think it was Cindy who said, either Cindy or Denise, who was talking about, this ridiculous notion of a child should be seen and not heard. I grew up in that era as well. The thing is, though, you have to have some kind of boundaries when you're talking about raising children. It cannot be where a child, yes, you want to encourage them to be able to express themselves and have a voice, but it cannot be where children are allowed to be disrespectful to their elders to the point where when they become older, and my personal opinion is, if you have a 12-year-old that is out of control, my question is, what happened between age 1 and 11? How did they get to be 12 years old and out of control? Clearly, you as a parent have failed at some point for you to have a 12-year-old that is uncontrollable. So did you not address that child's disciplinary needs from 1 to 11? How do you respond to that? Anybody?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to determine what we view as disrespect. Because in our culture, a child just having a mind of their own is considered disrespectful. So we're already starting at a wrong place as it relates to children.
Okay, let me before you go any further, let me just give you an example.
Okay.
I was dealing with a client one day online, and I heard her calling out to her son. And so the kid responds to her, "Mommy, just wait." So I said, what did he say to you? So she said, "Child, that's how he is." I said, "How old is he?" "He's 5. And I said to myself, you letting a 5-year-old telling you, "Mommy, just wait"? Like, is that not disrespectful? Or am I too old school? Explain to me, please.
Okay, so
if I can interject.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Sorry, Shervonne. No, I was going to say that, first of all, at 5, a lot of children will mimic what they see and what they hear going on in their immediate environment. So if that child typically sees that sort of response being given to being called, that might be why he or she said he said that. So that 5-year-old isn't trying to be disrespectful. He's more than likely just mimicking what he's seen. But even in that, you, as the parent, you should speak to that child and say, just to try to find out what's going on with that child at that point for him to say that. Maybe playing with a little game or something. We are so reactive when it comes to children. It's insane. I really feel like a lot of us as parents are bullies because like the way that we would respond to an adult, I'm sorry, the way that we would respond to a child, we wouldn't dream of responding to an adult that way. We become ticked off with the slightest things with our children. It's crazy. Go ahead, Shervonne. Sorry.
Shervonne, I think Shervonne is having issues with her internet connection because she seems frozen.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
I
Go ahead, Shervonne.
Oh, I am.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me now? Oh, I'm still.
You're sort of doing a matrix type of thing, but go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I have been listening. Sorry about. I think the first thing we need to establish, like Denise, like Cindy have said, is that children have rights. And in our culture, I agree. I was told that, you need to be seen, not to be heard. When grown-ups come in the house, you go in the room, etc. Speak about the uptick in sexual abuse because of that. Because a lot of times we encourage, unknowingly maybe, our children to be quiet and to be silent, impacting them. Now, on the other hand, when you look at the physical aspect of abuse, I feel that as a former teacher of children, children and whatnot, it's amazing what you learn from little kids by sometimes, like Cindy said, just listening to the children. So it's amazing what you learn about them and what you see in terms of their personality and whatnot. Now, Michelle, I agree with you as well. It has to be a boundary set, because I have seen some little kids in Pan. I was like, oh dear, I don't personally have children. But yeah, it has to be a boundary. Yes, you want your child to express themselves and to be able to have conversations. However, you have to set a boundary and say, you know what, I am still your mother. I am still the adult in the room. So it has to be a boundary set. Because if we allow them thing as they wish, they grow into an adult believing like, they should not, or they don't have, they don't have to respect anyone. So I'm looking at it from both lenses, I could say, so to speak, and knowing when to sit and listen and explain to them and reasoning. Perhaps if you discipline them, I feel like you shouldn't hit a child or discipline a child out of anger, but explain you may have to tap on the, bottom, etc. like that. It's a reason, but like Cindy said, not out of anger, not right away. The child says something, you probably misunderstood or misinterpret what they said, and you just whack them or embarrass them, even embarrassing the children in the front of their peers, in the front of other people. I mean, we are adults. We should show them a level of respect as well, because they have rights. They have rights to be protected, rights to safety. And we should treat them as miniature us, not as though that they're. So that's my input on that.
Okay, thanks, Shervonne. Now we got most of what you said. You're in the matrix a bit. We got most of what you said. Denise, I know you want to chime in, so let's and then we'll take a break. So go ahead, Denise.
I think my opinion differs slightly. What I wanted to ask you, Michelle, what was her response when the child responded? When the fact responded that way? Because
she didn't say anything, and that's why I said, "That's your." What did he say to you?
Yeah, see, and that's the thing too. I am sure when people the way my children and I communicate with each other, they would deem it as disrespectful. So if she doesn't, but because I am aware of how I allow them to be open with me, I make sure I tell them, or they know that they cannot speak to every adult with the tone as well as how they communicate, because they are very open communicators. So I think that's where the generational gap comes in too, in terms of parenting as well, because I don't think they will respond to me like that, but I mean, we're very open. And if we're in public and I look at others and I can see them questioning, well, that's them, mommy, or like, I can see it, but I encourage them to talk to me openly, but respectfully. But it's with our culture, it would still seem disrespectful from an outsider looking in. So that's why I also encourage them and remind them they can't talk to anyone like any other adult like that, like in school, on the workplace, stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to take a deeper look at what child abuse is, because I think people need to understand what constitutes abuse. Some people may be abusing their child and not even realize that this is considered abusive, because like we've been saying, that's how they were raised. So we're going to talk about that on the other side of the break. Stay with us. This is GPS. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 hyperimmune egg powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for rims, paints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires, cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Glasses love.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun. Welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm in your company, and today we are talking child abuse prevention. My guests are Debi Ray Rivers, Denise Major, Cindy Godet, and Shervonne Hollis. I want to read a couple of comments from our Facebook viewers, and then we're going to go our first clip of the day. So this particular comment comes in from Zenneman. Zenneman says, we must remember we came from a slave society where corporal punishment was used by overseers on adults and children to conform to rules and regulations. I believe some of our laws that are remnants of our colonial era include capital punishment. My comments about coming out of a slave society were not meant to justify physical abuse of children, but to underscore the need for a paradigm shift in our society of how we raise children. A lot of educational programs must be implemented in this regard at every level. And we even still have laws on the books that allow corporal punishment. Gentleman further says, respect is a two-way street. Children learn from the environment in which they are raised. Gentleman also says, as far as the overcrowding in residential facilities of children removed from their homes because of abuse, I believe more efforts must be done to create foster care placement for children with families. This would require training of those foster parents and monitoring of those homes. And Clarence is asking, how many of your guests have children? I guess Clarence trying to say, y'all, if y'all ain't got no children, y'all ain't know what y'all talking about. Okay, so Denise is raising her hand. Cindy is raising her hand. Yeah, some of them do have children, Clarence. So yes. Now, I want to go to our first clip because, as I said prior to the break, we need to understand what constitutes child abuse because it's more than what you think. You may not physically hurt your child or spank your child, but you may be doing even more damage with the words you speak to your child. So let's take a look at clip number 1 to give us a better understanding of what is child abuse.
We have hope because prevention is possible. Prevention begins with strong families. Strong families come from strong communities. The best way to prevent abuse and neglect is to educate and address risk factors. For at-risk communities, things like safe housing, quality childcare, medical care, mental health services, and after-school programs reduce the risk of child abuse and neglect. When parents or caregivers evaluate their own risk factors, like not having positive parental role models, not managing stress, and lack of support, they can proactively seek resources to give their kids the best care. Education provides early intervention and prevention. When children know they have a right to feel safe, they are more likely to report abuse and less likely to blame themselves. When communities know risk factors and signs, early reporting happens. When families know there are programs designed to help them succeed, prevention is possible. The trauma from child abuse and neglect can have lifelong impacts. Let's help protect children before it occurs.
So that actually talks about prevention is possible, but I want to talk about what is abuse. Because I'm sure that you guys have a list of things that constitute abuse. And I think we need to make this information available to people so they can understand whether or not their behavior is questionable. So I don't know who wants to jump in with that. What is abuse? How do you abuse a child?
Well, abuse is typically characterized as any sort of behavior, be it physical, psychological, verbal, that is harmful to a child, either to their bodies or to their mental health and their emotional well-being. Any action that you take that is a detriment to a child is considered child abuse.
Okay, can you break it down for us? Spanking, whatever.
Sure. So that can include verbal abuse, excuse me, insulting a.
So that can
Go ahead.
include
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought I heard an echo. Okay, so that can include verbal abuse, insulting a child, cursing at a child, raising a child in an abusive home where a child is witnessing abuse take place. That child may not necessarily be the recipient of the abuse, but if they are in an abusive environment, that is also considered child abuse. Then, of course, there's the physical abuse. I personally see spanking as abusive, but I understand that not every institution or group that gathers such information sees it as that. So I will just stick with what the institutions say. They typically say anything that leaves a mark, a bruise, or a scar on a child is considered abusive. Hitting a child in the face or the head or anywhere in the body that can damage a vital organ is considered abusive. Okay. And then, of course, I'll let like Debi or any of the others answer in regards to sexual.
Well, before we go there, we have a caller on the line. I don't want to lose the caller, so let's take the call first, and then we'll look at sexual abuse of children. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Madam Malcolm, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Again, a very excellent show.
Thank you.
I don't believe this country, I don't think they like you too much.
Well, it is what it is. I mean, they need to take a number.
Yes, as we listen.
I ain't losing sleep.
Yeah, I don't think, you notice I do the observation, you're not going to be popular getting calls.
Well, it
and
is.
it don't matter to you.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, the message must be go out. But let me ask this question on abuse. Help me, I want your guest to answer this. Sisters who make 4 and 5 mistakes with 5 different men having children, is that abuse? I'll just hang up and listen. We want to know that.
Abuse to who? The children or the what do you mean? Be specific, please.
Abuse of having children, and you're not in the position to take care of these 4 and 5
So you're
children.
saying that if a woman knows she can't take care of a child and she has the child, she's abusing the child because she's bringing the child into an environment that she can't care for the child? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we asking that question. Is that abuse?
Okay, let me let my panelists answer. Thanks for calling.
Okay.
Well, first of all, the last time I checked, it takes 2 people to make a baby, not just one.
Hello. But go ahead.
So it's that question is rather weird in terms of a woman seeing as how she had.
It's not weird. It's typical. It's
you know what? Yeah,
it's not weird.
That you're right. It's not weird. I actually completely take that word back because it's not weird. It is typical. Sad actually is the word that I should have used, because that woman had help in creating that life. So if you're asking if both parties who came together and created that life, or lives actually, because you said multiple, are then abusing these children because they do not have the resources to take care of those children, I wouldn't necessarily consider it abusive. I would consider it irresponsible. I mean, you can, just because you are, poor or lacking resources doesn't necessarily make you a bad parent.
Exactly.
So, but the whole premise of the question is off from the beginning.
Well, you have to understand that caller is one of my regular callers, and he always comes from the position of women are demons from hell and men are the soul saviors of the world. And so, and I know he can call back to say, now, Michelle, you need to stop. But that's his position. He's always pro-man and always got an issue. So you got to understand where he's coming from. But I agree with you. Somebody help her make that child. Now, at the end of the day, if you want to argue that, well, she's the one who's stuck taking care of the child because he, dropped his seed and, that is true. But somebody helped her to make that child. This was not another situation of immaculate conception. So when we're talking about responsibility or irresponsibility, we're talking about 2 parties involved here.
Yes.
And anyway, I don't want to lose track and get off track of what we're talking about today. Okay. Because you have people who are in wealthy households who are abusing their children. You have people who are affluent who are abusing their children. So it's not a situation of because listen, I didn't grow up in in a wealthy home. You know, my mother struggled as a single parent. Now back then, I took my couple of spankings and beatings. She wasn't abusive in my opinion, but that is all she knew. And like I said in one of my previous shows, whenever I did something that drove her to that, most times I look for that. But anyway, that's another show. But we didn't have a lot. But I knew that I was loved, and she did her best to care for her children. You know what I mean? So just because you are from an underprivileged home doesn't mean that that's automatic abuse, because you have a lot of children who are growing up in homes from the outside looking in. You would see that everything is wonderful, but they catching pure hell in those homes, so let's not get it twisted. But let's talk about is that a call for the show? Go ahead. Who wanted to jump in, and then we have a call for the show.
Before we move on to sexual abuse with Debi and Shervonne, I think with us too, culturally, we have difficulty understanding or grasping abuse because it's a cultural thing. And we're not talking about this one-off, I'm upset and I screamed at my child, because we don't think about the verbal abuse and neglect. Well, neglect is something we don't think about at all, because as single parents, sometimes our children have to be at home alone sometimes. And while it may be normal for some, I may look at it and be like, oh no, she's neglecting that child because she has to work and there's nobody there to watch that child. So it varies, but across the board. And I think that's why we have a difficulty putting a true definition to what neglect and abuse is. Sexual abuse is straightforward. But child abuse, okay, so you're telling me I can't spank my child with my hands versus getting a belt or a rope and tearing up their behind. So we have to be logical and really think about it too. Some people may accept spanking with a hand, others may not. But definitely beating a child with an iron or rope or electrical cord, things of that nature is abusive. It's clearly abusive.
Yeah.
So there may be some gray areas when it comes to spanking, or if I had a bad day and the neighbor heard me yelling at my child and called the hotline for me, So it's very, as parents, this thing hard. It hard. We need all the help we can get, and we have to accept the help when it's presented.
We have a caller on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
My sister, I'm gonna pray for you. I'm gonna pray for you. Okay, let me. We still mixed up. You said. Okay, I gotta pray for you. I know you don't meant what you say, and I'm not that. I have two girls. You don't know that.
Yeah,
two
I know.
Beautiful girls.
You said so before.
Age of 41, and my baby is 84, and they give me 5 beautiful grands, which I adore. But the question is still this, and I tell my girls this. Okay, let me withdraw the word abuse. Let me use the word irresponsible. If a man outsmarts you once, and you show all your jaw teeth once, help me to understand how come it happens 2, 3, and 4 times.
That's another show.
And this is why I am saying to you, children need love, children need attention, and if you're not in a position to care for those children, let me say this, I think that is abuse. Let me just use me. I can talk for me. You see these men afraid to call. I am not afraid, because if I don't, my daughters could rebut me. When they call me and say, Daddy, you got to pick up, I don't even ask the question. I have to go pick up. I have to obey the queens. Or I have to obey them. Because that is a part of my responsibility. I am not afraid of my responsibility.
Okay. We don't want to
lose track of what... This is where I am saying to you, children need love. And this is where I am of the belief that children are not to be born into an environment where love is not there. I think that is abuse.
All right.
Michelle, I have a question for him, though. Is it financial abuse? Isn't it a form of abuse when the man is not there to take care of these children that he made? Yes or no?
I think he hung up.
Okay, so see, we put all of this responsibility on the woman. Yes, it is abusive, but the man is the abuser when he is not there to take care of the child that he conceived, that he produced, that he helped produce.
Yeah, we trust me, ain't no getting through to that guest, that caller. But he's my friend, though. That's my good listener.
Okay,
but I don't want to lose track. That's another show altogether. I because this is too big an issue for us to get sidetracked with another topic of another show. Because there are too many children in our country and around the world who are suffering in silence. In some parts because their parents just are frustrated and lash out of anger. In some cases, because their parents just don't know any better. But whatever the cause of the problem still exists and is impacting the lives of these children to the degree that it could impact our entire future as a nation if we do not address it. So that's the whole point of doing this show today, to identify what abuse looks like. Now, like Denise said, when you're talking sexual abuse, that's obvious. Although you question, though, some people still saying in the case of this 14-year-old who was impregnated by a 40-year-old man that he wasn't wrong. So maybe some people aren't clear as to what is sexual abuse of a child. And maybe we need to spell it out for them. So go ahead. Let's jump into that.
Well, I can talk about Bermuda. We have an age of consent, and it is 16. So it's not even what anybody thinks. It's against the law to have any sexual contact with
just
anyone.
So you know, Debbie, just so you know, we have an age of consent too. But go ahead.
Yeah. So I can only speak, from the work that I've done in Bermuda is helping our community understand that it is a crime. It is against the law. I don't care if a child begs an adult to have sexual contact with them. It is against the law to gain sexual pleasure from a child. Period. End of story. There are consequences when you break the law. And what we have done in Bermuda, Michelle, is we have started to really have a total shift in the way that we think about this issue, because we have educated 21% of our adult population in sexual abuse prevention. And I know that Shervonne is trying to get this training curriculum in your country. I mean, you can't be a teacher anymore in our country, in our public school system, most of our private schools, without doing prevention education. You can't teach football through our Bermuda Football Association without having prevention education. I mean, and we saw the cultural shift happen. You can't open up a daycare center or be a home care provider without sexual abuse prevention education. Education is what changed the shift in our country to where people now are understanding this is not okay. We used to use the term interfering. If somebody had sexual contact with a child, an adult, they'd call it interfering. Well, we've gotten rid of that word because that is not the definition of child sexual abuse, because we soften what it is. This sexual abuse causes the damage to children. It causes psychological damage. It causes emotional damage. It causes drug addiction, alcoholism, promiscuity, depression, anxiety, anger, crime, dropping out in school. It affects all of us. It affects somebody's health, emotional health. It affects every single one of us when a child is sexually assaulted. And what really worked with us in the shift was when, as soon as we educated 5% of our adult population in prevention, in understanding what the facts are about sexual abuse, understanding how to minimize the opportunity, because sexual abuse of children is preventable. When we help them understand how to talk to their children about body safety early and often, something I didn't do well at all. We couldn't even call a penis. We give it another name. Well, why are we shaming the body, the human body? And why are we don't have another name for our eyes or our nose or our mouth, but we get to our private parts and we become shameful. And we can't even call it a penis or a vagina. And it was another mistake I made raising my children. We had pet names for private body parts, teaching our children that they can say no to unwanted touch, even if it's an adult, even if it's a relative. It's okay to say, no, please don't do that to me. It's okay to talk to people who are taking care of your children about what you expect of those organizations that take care of your children. Do you do prevention education? Sorry, my child's not going to go to school here unless the people that work there are educated in prevention. Do you have a safe social media policy? Do you have a safe travel and transportation policy? What do those policies look like? These are all the things we teach in our training. And then how do we react to a child who discloses? Do we believe them? Do we blame them? Do we tell them to be quiet? You know, how do we react? We need to react responsibly. And Bermuda is the leading island, I can tell you, that has really made changes in their country. Our laws are strengthening thanks to our Attorney General. You know, organizations are mandated prevention education. Parents are coming into the room so that they can learn what they need to do to help protect their children. We want our children to self-advocate. We want our child to tell us about anything and about anyone that makes them feel uncomfortable. Even if I make you feel uncomfortable as a mom, you can tell me. Your body belongs to you. Nobody should look, view, take pictures of your private body parts, and you shouldn't do it to others. And if anybody ever does, I want you to come and tell me, no matter who it is.
That is really powerful. And I hope that we will see something similar happen in this country where it is mandated that persons who are responsible for any form of caring of children, in an institutional level especially, have to undergo such training.
Yes, Michelle, and I think your country will benefit greatly. You know, Shervonne is a facilitator. You've got to get that in your country, and I know your population is so much larger than ours. We have 60,000. You probably have close to half, right? 400,000 with all your islands. But it is possible. It is possible to get the education, because education is power. And once you educate the adults to let them understand the spillover of this, because it can cause someone to then physically abuse. You know why? Because they're angry. Somebody abused them when they're little. So where does all that aggression go if they've shoved it down? They may get involved in criminal acts because of anger, right? And it's amazing if you think about what happens to a child who is sexually molested and keeps that quiet. Where does pain go? It's got to go somewhere.
Yeah. And eventually it will come out.
It will. And it affects an entire community. But once you can educate a community in prevention, that I know Shervonne can do, along with Denise and Cindy and all of you there, get this movement going to start educating the community about, and it is not okay to have any sexual contact with a child. Strengthen your laws, strengthen your sentencing, you know, and really support families as they go through the journey of prosecution. That is so important. Putting a support around them and say, so you have to turn it up on its head. It is not okay for anyone to sexually harm a child. And we are not going to put up with it. And our reporting's gone up huge, you know, and they say the SCARS movement has played a large role in that because we started educating the community. That's what happens when you educate people. It is not okay.
Under any circumstances. Zenneman says, one of our Facebook viewers says, I think we need to underscore after-school programs for children. Latchkey children are more susceptible to sexual abuse and exploitation. I think only the Foxhill community has a community center that offers these services. We need community centers in all our grassroots communities. Churches can also open their doors to these community services.
Can I answer that?
Absolutely.
Answer that, Michelle? Yes, that's important. But are the people that work in those organizations educated in prevention? Do they know what the signs are to look out for? Do they have to sign a document that says these are the things I can and cannot do? Because I will tell you one thing, sex offenders will look for organizations where there are children.
Yes.
So you may have all the best community centers in the world, but if those people aren't educated in what to look out for, how to respond if a child tells them they're being abused, what are some of your policies there? That's all well and good. We can have people taking care of children, but even people who work in youth-serving organizations harm children.
Oh, absolutely. Some of them seek those associations out because they get free access to children.
Exactly.
So we have to talk about screening persons who actually serve in these clubs and associations that deal with children, because many of them see that as a gateway to get to their victims.
Oh, and they'll hide behind that. You know, also in churches, they will use the building to hide behind that.
Yeah.
And you know, like we've had to say, you know, you, with my SCARS hat off, you can't say that you know God and love God and have an accurate view of God and harm children. It's an oxymoron. You cannot do both. The greatest in God's kingdom, in my personal view, is children.
Very powerful. Okay, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation about child abuse prevention. It is Child Abuse Prevention Month here in the Bahamas. And we have far too many children who are being abused and suffering in silence. But we know that, like was just said by Debi, that pain has to go somewhere. And eventually it will come out. And we're not going to be too happy about the way that it comes out if we don't deal with this once and for all. So that's what we're talking about on the show today. We'll have more on the other side of the break. Stay with us. This is GPS, and we'll be right back.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 hyperimmune egg powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rim fence and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun. Welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm in your company, and today my guest and I are talking about child abuse prevention. I want to go to a couple of comments, and then we're going to open the phone lines officially. So Oswald says, What do you do when possibly the abuser is a father or mother, as some abused children withdraw and react differently? So imagine telling what you think you see to a parent who passes it off as that child's normal behavior. That is a very good point, because what is to be done when the abuser is actually, when the monster is actually in the house with the child? If you as a neighbor suspect something, is it your responsibility to get involved, even though you may say, well, because, you know, we heard it in the case of baby Bella here in the Bahamas. The people heard the child being abused, but decided not to get involved because they didn't want to get in people's business. And now the child is dead and gone. So how much of it is a responsibility of we as a community for us to get involved when we suspect something at the risk of offending a neighbor?
It's extremely important, and getting involved is what's going to save our children's lives. There are hotlines we can call. We can call the police. We can do so much things. And education is key as well. Teach our children out. So if the abuser is in the home, if a teacher is vigilant, if the teacher can notice some things, and teachers are mandated to report. Youth organizations are mandated to report. Health officials are mandated to report. We have to report by law. So in addition to educating the child, this is abuse, speak out and we can help you. Neighbors, community members, even if you suspect something, it's better to be safe than sorry. Speaking out may save that child's life.
Okay. Regina says, at the end of the day, every individual in society, has a part to play in protecting and caring for our children and should be held responsible for what goes on in each other's lives, because many of us turn a blind eye to what goes on around us. This is the reason why it is so prevalent among us. More persons need to come forth, just as the persons did in the case of the 14-year-old and 40-year-old. The fact of the matter is, what we believe is not our business often becomes a major problem, I guess she went on to say. We have another comment. This one coming in from Zeneman. Zeneman says, most abusers are family members or close family friends. That's why everyone in our society must be required reporters. This is teachers, counselors, coaches, church workers, etc. Again, everyone must be educated about the signs of child abuse. I could not agree more. Now, here is why this is important for us to understand. We as human beings are social creatures. And when it comes to the whole question of neglect, somebody's mic is giving me some feedback. When it comes to the whole question of neglect, we need to understand that this is not just a matter of that particular child alone being impacted by the neglect. And I know that it has been said here that in the Bahamas, our number one problem is child abuse, followed by physical abuse, followed by sexual abuse, followed by neglect. But we have to understand the long-term and far-reaching impacts of all forms of abuse. And in this particular clip, we're going to look at the impacts to the entire society, entire community of neglect. Let's go to that clip.
Everyone in a community has a vested interest in everyone else's children, because everyone else's children determine the next adult population that makes for a successful society. Built into our biology is the need to have responsive interactions with adults.
Neglect for children is when they don't get what the brain is expecting to get, what the child is expecting to get, what we are biologically prepared and waiting for, which is input from those around us.
It's this back and forth serve and return interaction that literally shapes the architecture of the brain.
Serve and return begins when a child looks at something or observes something, makes an utterance, and that represents the serve. And the return is when the parent notices the child doing these things and responds to the child.
Under conditions where serve and return is broken, You literally are pulling away what is the essential ingredient of the development of human brain architecture.
It was a really compelling series of experiments where they started by videotaping the mother and the baby engaging in cooing and smiling. And then they asked the mother to basically put on a blank face and not respond at all. When a baby is not attended to, that is a sign of danger to the baby biologically. So the stress systems become activated.
In a brain that is constantly bathed in stress hormones, not that's up and down, that comes with normal development, certain key synapses, the connections between nerves, fail to form, and critical regions of the brain.
So neglect both fails to provide the stimulation that's needed to develop the basic architecture, and when it's at a certain level, is one of the most potent activators of the stress biology of a young child. So you get a double whammy.
Science points to 4 categories of this spectrum of neglect. The first category would be what's called occasional inattention, where children experience responsiveness most of the time, but occasionally adults don't respond. There's no harm in that, and in fact, there's probably some benefit.
A child can learn to self-soothe and explore the environment, and all of those opportunities build brain architecture.
The second category, scientists would call chronic understimulation, is where on a regular basis, children have less interaction with the adults around them than is needed for healthy development.
Those children typically, when provided with enriched learning opportunities and more typical levels of serve and return, will show catch-up.
The third category is what science would call severe neglect in a family where not only are there prolonged periods of inattention and lack of responsiveness, but often also associated with not being fed enough, not being bathed enough, not having basic needs met.
We see the child really being at risk for much more substantial kinds of deficits down the road that don't necessarily get easily fixed or ameliorated. This is where we really need to think about more complicated and often more intensive strategies to help undo those effects.
The fourth category, called severe neglect, generally found in institutional settings, is the result of children living in kind of warehoused type situation in orphanages.
And it does
about what institutional or residential care would look like for an infant, where there's somebody new coming onto the shift every 8 hours. It really alters the development of the child's brain architecture and other aspects of the child's development.
We have the potential to change children's developmental trajectories.
Interventions can apply to parents, to foster parents or adoptive parents, child care settings, Head Start settings, and other kinds of settings. And really, what they're about is attuning people to the serve and return process.
Neglecting young children is neglecting the foundations of a healthy next generation. The community pays a huge price later in terms of the problems of the next generation, whether it be educational achievement, economic productivity, good citizenship, the ability to parent the next generation. All of the things that have to do with a healthy, prosperous society.
I thought that was such a powerful piece when I came across that, because what it does is it shows you that this is not just a matter of a child wanting attention, but the whole science of neglect and how it impacts us as a community, I thought was really profound. This is something that I think we generally speaking don't understand. And so it's not just a matter of, oh, this child is seeking attention, but the child actually needs it for their development. I think if we got that, then we would understand the importance of giving that child adequate feedback. This gentleman says this video clip is extremely important. These concepts must be taught to male and female adolescents in our secondary school family life. And all parents seeking government social services must be required to be involved in these child care education classes. I thought it was particularly powerful, the experiment that they showed for my radio audience. The experiment was for showing an interaction between a mother and baby. And the moment the mother stopped responding, you could see the stress on that child. As young as that child was, the child just flipped out. So how important is it for us now? You know, knowledge is power. A lot of people just didn't have the knowledge, but we're bringing it to them in the hopes that they will take this knowledge and now begin to act on it. What do we need to do? And I love the program that you talked about, Debi, in your country, where people are taught how to look for abuse. But now we need to talk about educating an entire society about how important it is to have positive interactions with children. How do we do that? And this is open to anybody, not just Debi.
I mean, we have been making some headways in this regard. A lot of people don't realize we have the National Parenting Program. Okay. Usually, when we think about that program, we think it's for parents, but it's open to anyone who wants to enhance their parenting skills. I know a lot of the schools that I work with, public schools and private schools, they have sessions for parents, and they're talking about a variety of topics: conflict resolution, talking to your children about sex, how to have difficult, just addressing issues that the teachers and the schools are seeing with the students, and they make these resources available. So there are many different approaches that we can take, that we're beginning to take, but as always, more needs to be done.
Definitely more needs to be done. I don't know if people may say that it's far-reaching, but should we now mandate that if you show up pregnant, whether you are single, married, or in between, it is mandatory that you take some kind of parenting classes? I think a big part of our community, a big part of the problems that we're seeing in our community, is that we have a lot of children having children who don't understand the responsibility of parenting. And if they themselves weren't parented properly, I mean, this is going downhill fast. So are we coming to the point now where we make parenting classes mandatory and not just optional?
I feel that we should. But again, we have this thing as individuals of being told, I don't know what I'm doing, or, you know, we put our egos before. I happily sign up for parenting classes because I recognize that it's ever changing. These new children aren't the children that I'm used to. And I'm sure older generations said the same thing about us. So everything is evolving. I feel that the program, that is a good initiative that we can take. I am not sure if it's on the family islands, such as Grand Bahama and the other islands, but I know definitely we have it in New Providence. But again, when we think about it, it's only for those, if the kids are problematic or in problem, we don't have to wait till it gets to that point. Let's prevent these things by recognizing, hey, I don't know everything. So the same way how I sign up for Lamar's classes, for breastfeeding classes, let me do something to learn how to take care of a toddler. Okay, my child is getting older. Let me do some classes or enroll on a program or watch a video, something, because parenting is hard and it's ever changing.
I mean, let's face it. If I want to drive a car, I have to go get a license to drive that car.
Yep.
Chances are I would have to take some kind of classes to learn how to drive the car before I would even qualify to get the license or to take the test to get the license. So, and that's just driving a car. So when you're talking about something as important as directing an entire life,
yeah,
I would think that we would put equal, emphasis on the ability to be able to handle that responsibility. Well, maybe it's just me. I don't know.
and and not just for at risk, for all parents,
Everybody.
for everyone. We like to say, oh, the people in the inner. No, we all need it. Everyone needs some aspect of it.
I mean, truth be told, we are. I say it all the time. I'm an active part in my church's youth group leadership, and I often say it. You say it's new children. It's not that the children are new. It's just that what they're exposed to. These kids nowadays are exposed to so much more than we would have been exposed to in my generation or even your generation. They're exposed to so much more, which I would think makes parenting even that much more difficult. Because whereas back in the day, they only had to worry about a couple of things. Now they're being bombarded from every angle, it seems, with negative messaging. And so this, I think, even makes it more important for parents to be girded, given the support that they need to try to raise our children right, because it's not new children, it's new exposure. New levels of exposure, that really is impacting a lot of what we see happening in our society today. And I think a big part of our problem is that we, in the Bahamas, I don't know how it is in Bermuda, but in the Bahamas, we are experts at sweeping things under the rug. If I don't see it, if I don't look at it, then it doesn't exist. Meanwhile, the rug, so much stuff under there, it's spilling out now. There's no more room left under the rug. And we see this now spilling out into our society, whereby all you have to do is look around and you see the effects of us not addressing this sooner. But it's not too late. We can turn this around, but it's going to be, every journey begins with the first step. And so I really hope that legislators, church leaders, everyone, all stakeholders involved, find a way to stop pointing the finger of blame, come together, and let's figure out what we need to do to fix this problem once and for all, because it is going, I'm afraid for what the Bahamas is going to look like 10 years from now, not even 20, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, if we don't deal with this. Because we are creating a generation of broken people. And I'm sorry to say it, but like Debbie said, the pain is going to go somewhere. And as much as you try to push that down, eventually that's going to boil up. So it's vital that we address this problem before it gets any worse, and it's going to take, I think, persons like yourselves who are already doing the work, hopefully getting an audience with the policymakers, with the influencers of the direction that our country goes in, to make some practical recommendations. A part of our problem, I think, is, and I'm not just talking about this particular issue, but you have people who dress up in suits who sit in offices and make decisions when they don't have the practical experience for the decisions that they're making, ignoring the advice of the people who are in the trenches doing the work. But we have to put our egos aside and reach out to the people who are actually in the trenches, because your experience brings so much more to the table than just a person sitting back theorizing. I don't know if that's the right, if that's a word, but theoretically coming up with what they think is the solution when you have the practical experience. Have you guys been invited to any kind of forum, or are you seeking an audience with legislators to try to put something in place to make this more than just a concept, but actually, woven into our legal framework?
For me,
hi.
Go ahead, Shervonne.
Go ahead, Denise. I wanted to interject. For myself, for me and Debbie, yes, we have sat with, I wouldn't say legislators, but we have sat with some folks, hierarchy and government, and I have just submitted a proposal. I would say similar to the training that's done in Bermuda, of which I have been trained and I have been certified We have submitted it to Gender and Family Affairs. It was commissioned under the former administration. So we have prepared a proposal for the prevention of child sexual abuse. So yes, we have submitted it. We are just awaiting the response so we can further sit at the table with those who are decision makers. Just to add to what you ladies were saying, for me speaking on behalf as a Bahamian, what I feel we do wrong in the Bahamas is that we are more reactive than proactive. And in order for us to see the change that we need or that our country deserves in child sexual abuse prevention and whatnot, the key word is we need to be proactive. Proactive in our stance, proactive in our approach, proactive in educating every adult. I live in Bermuda. I am so amazed by Scars and Debi, and she didn't ask me to put in this plug, but I've been here over 21 years. And I have seen what Debi's organization have done through that Stewards of Children training. They have for the training asking us, when are we going to have this in the Bahamas? And if I must say, Michelle, I have learned so much. Whether you're a parent, you don't have to be a parent to protect children. I have nieces, grandnieces that I love as if they were my own. So let me make that clear. I love children. I do. And my passion is about protecting children. So I want to see my country get to where Bermuda is, which is the leading country in the world in child sexual abuse prevention. Miss Rivers, Debi, that you see here, has done to population. She have now led the way. She has the baton. She's done 20% of the adults and still leading. And I am one of those that the law in Bermuda, and I have been certified under SCAR. Trust me, and recognizing the sign and becoming a responsible bystander and being able to report and all of that. My eyes were open. So I would say to anyone that's listening, please reach out to us and find out more about the program. But we're working to get the program in the Bahamas, and it's well received. I just wanted to say that.
All right. Thank you so much. Denise, you had started to say something?
Well, I have been a part of organizations that have had seats at the table and who will continue to advocate for different legislations as well as policies to be addressed. So organizations such as Rise Bahamas, Bahamas Family Planning, now called Bahamas Sexual Health and Rights Association, my organization, the Empowerment Group, we have all had opportunities to meet with policymakers, legislators, to get some things done. I know through BASHRA, Bahamas Family Planning, we actually implemented a pilot program in our senior high schools called Baby Can Wait. It was a comprehensive sexuality education program where we talked about these things, inclusive of parenting, healthy relationships, and pretty much what it says, waiting before you have a child, waiting before you become a parent. We addressed it. We addressed all topics across the gamut. So yes, we are making some headways, but as always, more can be done. And like you said, we have a lot of people at the top who need to listen to those of us on the ground, and it has to be a collaborative effort.
So one of my Facebook viewers, Oswald, says, not everyone is designed to be a parent. And often when these people make a cry for help because they know they cannot handle parenthood, often we dismiss it. Not everyone wants to party. Some people just can't handle it. And we also have a comment coming in from Regina. Regina says, I think the program would be very helpful for parents who would be receptive to learning new ways to deal with their children. However, If a program is made mandatory in the schools to protect children from abuse, I believe it would be a more effective approach to eradicating the problem. Zenneman says men who do not want children, it fails to care for them, should be encouraged to get a vasectomy, and those who keep making babies need to be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. Good luck with that. Regina said, you want my favorite call the call back. Eh? Regina says Regina says using the school system makes it less personal than involving the parents. In situations where family members are involved, parents tend to take a back seat and are more reluctant to deal with such matters. Okay, we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back on the other side of this break, we are going to hear about preventative measures that we all should be taking to try to put an end to the abuse of children, whether it be physical abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, neglect. We have to protect our children. How do we do that? What are some of the things that you can do to help to protect the children around you? That and more on the other side of the break. Stay with us. This is GPS.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 hyperimmune egg powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rims fix and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Glasses love.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun. A big shout out to my friends at Tiki Bikini Hut on Junkanoo Beach. Byron Coley Austin and the crew out there will make you feel right at home. They make you feel like royalty when you walk through the doors. They bust out with the Junkanoo music and applause, and make you feel real good. But even more importantly, the food is so good. It's a great family-friendly atmosphere right on the beach. You can either get yourself a little private cabana on the beach, or you can, enjoy your time within the restaurant itself, even though it's an open-air restaurant. And great food, great family-friendly atmosphere, open air. You will not regret your decision to go visit them at Tiki Bikini Hut on Junkanoo Beach. Junkanoo Beach. Let them know you heard about it on GPS, and go and check them out. So we're talking today child abuse prevention during this April, which is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And I have a bit of a dialogue going on between my Facebook viewers. So let's show a little bit of this. Hasheen says, we can't be Africans trained by European mentality that has produced what is now an African problem and then try to use the same European mentality to try and solve what is now an African problem. Only a cat can solve a cat problem. Likewise, only Africans can solve African problems. So then Zenneman responds and say, listen, child neglect and abuse are taboo in all societies. This is not an African versus European paradigm. Abuse is abuse. Hasheen then responds, Europeans try to use African culture and religion to solve their problems, and now look at the global problems we all face with. So if we're going to stop child abuse, you will have to fix human abuse. Abuse people, abuse other people. Okay. So whether you are in Africa, America, the Caribbean, abuse is abuse. And we have to know what to do to stop this, because you could argue until you're blue in the face about where this whole problem began, whether or not it was because of slavery or the European or whatever. The problem is we have a problem. That's the bottom line. So the question now is, how do we fix the problem? Because I think we waste too much time having those kinds of arguments when people are being abused, children are being abused. And so what we need to figure out now in the last 18 minutes of this show is, what are some of the concrete steps we can take to try to stamp this out? Because as I hope you will understand by now, this isn't just an isolated problem. This is everybody's problem. It affects all of us. And therefore, we must all be a part of the solution. So where do we begin? What do I do if I want to get involved and try to put an end to child abuse, whether it's emotional, sexual, physical, neglect, whatever it is? How do we as a community get involved? What are some of the things that we can do?
I mean, first by educating ourselves, educating others about what abuse is. And then it's really simple. Educate yourself, educate others. If you see something, say something. And it's really that simple.
Okay. Are there organizations that we can be involved in? Let's talk about.
If I can, I will use a 5-step. If I can, I'll copy the 5-step framework from Darkness to Light, and I think this can be incorporated in neglect, sexual abuse, physical abuse against children. Step 1 says, learn the facts. We have to learn the facts of whether it's abuse sexually, neglect, physical abuse. Step 2 is minimize the opportunity by creating a safe environment that can reduce the risk of abuse. Like I said, it's sexual abuse prevention. However, I feel it can be adapted to any form of abuse in regards to a child or an adult. Step 3, talk about have to address the problem. Step 4, recognize the signs. We have to be knowledgeable, whether it's in our home, whether it's on our jobs, whether it's in the school. We have to recognize signs of abuse. And step 5, how to react responsibly. Once you find out something, whether you're a parent, a guardian, or authority, how to react responsibly in handling the matter or in reporting the matter and dealing with the matter. So I would say that would be more or less like a framework. I'll turn it over to Debbie.
Yeah, you said it all. I mean, it's all going to determine about choices. We all have choices. Sometimes, if it's a family member or somebody we care about or a good friend, we may make the choice not to do anything. We may make the choice to pretend it didn't happen. It really is about making choices whether we're going to have, important conversations with our little ones about their bodies, about respect, about consent, about boundaries. Those conversations are so critical. We have to take a risk. Sometimes it's a risk to call out somebody who's crossing the boundary of a child. Sometimes it's a risk to have to make that phone call to report somebody to the authorities. But this is what we say. It's better to offend an adult than fail a child. But it takes risk. You don't know what the outcome of making that report is going to mean. I had to, I went through this whole thing with prosecution with my children, and I said, he may not go to jail, but we're still doing the right thing. It really is about, making choices. And it also is about support. We need to support each other in this, on this topic of prevention and of, protecting children. We all need support. Our children need our support. They need unconditional love and support as they go through their life. And letting children know that abuse is not okay. Children were not, like I said, brought into this world meant to be abused. They were meant to be loved and cared for and guided. But it's really hard to give somebody something that you didn't have. It may be very difficult if you came up into a family that you were physically abused. And, that's also about making choices. Am I going to continue in this behavior knowing that it didn't do me well? Or am I going to say, no, I'm going to stop it at my generation. I'm not going to do this because I know the effects that it had on me. And so that's some of the empowerment skills that we wrap around some of the 5 facts that Shervonne shared.
You're leading me right to where I wanted to go next in this conversation, because oftentimes we see where an abused person becomes an abuser later on in life. And so if that is me, if I realize that I have a problem and I want to do something to stop this, what are my options? What do I do? Especially here in the Bahamas, where do I go? How do I get the help that I need without, some people might be afraid to come forward because they think, well, I might be prosecuted if I come forward and say I have a problem. So I'm just going to keep this to myself. In the meantime, they continue to offend and offend and offend because they're afraid to get the help. What are the options available to people who actually need help in this regard?
I know Dr. David Allen has a program for individuals, our family program. The Crisis Center also offers programs as well for offenders, for persons who feel as though that they have a problem. The Crisis Center, Bahamas Family Planning Association, and the National Parenting Program. So those are some resources that I can think of offhand that can possibly assist. If you have an issue or you require some help, they would assist you in a judgment-free manner.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to go to another comment from Oswald. Oswald says, education, it's not that simple. There are some people who identify abuse as a form of love. We have to be able to make the parenting sacrifice, knowing that only you can look out for and protect your child. Your family will never be like the TV families, as well as it may be, but then are you living in the real time or fantasy? Here's the thing. In many of these homes, I shouldn't say many, but in some of these homes where abuse is taking place, a big part of the reason, and I'm not justifying it, but a big part of the reason why one parent will stand by and allow another parent to abuse a child is because that parent is the sole breadwinner And so I'm afraid that if I speak out against him or her, then that's going to leave the family in a position where, my kids might be put into foster care, or I may not be able to care for them. So because this person is the one that's bringing the bacon home, we have to just allow that person to do what they're doing. But what people need to understand is, I've actually heard of a case where there were like at least 6 daughters in the house, and one by one, that man ran through his daughters. And the mother finally confessed to someone I know that the youngest child, I think, was 9 or 10 at the time, and he was now turning his eyes towards her. And she was finally saying, I just don't know what to do. And I'm thinking, this has already happened through 5 of your daughters. At what point do you say enough is enough? Because we have to put our children's needs and first. It can't be where you figure, okay, this person is supporting our family, so I have to let them do what they want to do. But what about the damage that's being done to that child who will then become an adult? We have to put our children's needs first. These children are depending on you to protect them, depending on you to nurture them so that they can grow into productive human beings. And when we fail them, what does that say to them about their own self-worth and value? Especially if a child has the courage to come forward and then you tell them, go sit down, I don't believe you. That person would never do that. How important is it for you to listen to what that child has to say and believe them?
It's crucial. It will determine healing. It will get them on that healing journey. It will let them know that adults are going to stand up for me. It's going to make a difference in their adulthood going forward when they have support. And that is the key, Michelle, is support. Even the person who's the non-abuser, the person who loves their children but is standing up for an abuser, that person needs support to say, we're going to stand in and help you because this is wrong. But you're absolutely right. Because if we don't do it, it's going to leave an emotional scar for life.
And Debbie, also support is key. A lot of people, they are operating as survivors themselves, so they really don't know how to function. They literally need someone to come in, point this out, have a conversation with them, and hold their hand throughout the entire process. So not a lot, but quite a few people are victims of abuse themselves, and the cycle is repeating for them now as adults. So that support is so important. It's very important.
Every time I do one of these shows, it wears you down because it seems that the problem is so big and you question, can we really turn this around? But I always encourage myself with the saying that, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You got to start somewhere. It may be a very big problem, but if we each did our own little part, we would eventually, make a dent into the problem. So
Michelle,
go ahead.
I have 3 schools that I go in every week religiously. And I sit with each class. Well, let me use one example. It's a junior and senior high school. So it's 7th through 12th graders. And this is over 1,000 students. Every week I go into the school. I listen to them. I hear from them. I bring the information. We unpack that information. They share their stories. They share their experiences. Parents are called in when need be. Parents are given the information. It's not, when we say education, it's not a one-off thing where we go, here, see some pamphlets, here, see this information. No, it requires that you build a relationship with these families as well. So you're exhausted doing these shows. Imagine us and there are many of us out there who are in the field, on the ground, doing the stuff daily, over time. And yes, sometimes we feel as though, no, we're not getting anywhere. But when we have those students who come forward and say, hey, this is how this helped me. When we have those parents that come forward and say, thank you, or where we see that a change has been made or help has been given in a certain situation, it makes it all worth it. So like you said, one bite at a time. All of us need to do our part.
Absolutely. Okay, so I am going to give, let's see, it's 3:55. I'm going to give each of you 1 minute to give us your final thoughts on what we do to make this a meaningful month and beyond as it relates to protecting our children from all forms of abuse. Shervonne, let's start with you.
Sure, thank you. If I can say, I would say educate, starting at all levels, from the decision makers down to the parents, even the children. There's they need to be educated as well about their safety, body rules and whatnot. We have to educate our society. We have to go happens to preventing, creating a sense of awareness. I want to say to you, Michelle, thank you so much for us on your platform. This sort of work, you have to be passionate. You cannot it's not for the weak and the weary. You cannot get tired of doing this, because each day you have a story that touches your life, whether you're a parent, a guardian, or just a regular individual. So we have to educate our society. My hope, my desire, my dream is that we try to incorporate the children program in the Bahamas that has opened up my eyes, and many Bahamians have been trained in the program. So I'm hoping that we can have a program as such or similar in the Bahamas to bring about the awareness, in the Bahamas. And so we could help to mitigate. We can't save every child, but we could put an indent in there. We can help many others. So again, I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for helping to pull it together. Debbie, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I agree with Shervonne. Educate. I can see a huge change. I want to leave you with hope. It is possible. It absolutely is possible to change mindsets, to let a community know that it is not okay to harm children, that every child who comes into this world is special and their body is special and private, that every child who comes in this world is valuable. They are important. How they feel is important. And that every child who comes into this world has a purpose. And when children are harmed and they experience pain from any type of abuse, sometimes that stops the purpose in their life, because they spend years trying to deal with it and the spillover of that, whatever that looks like, the scar that comes out. But if we can prevent abuse of children, we can have happy, healthy children, which will mean happy, healthy adults, which will mean a happy, healthy community. And it is possible. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and keep the awareness going. Don't just stop in April. It needs to be every month of the year in people's ears and in their hearts, to know that children are important. They are vital to the community, and they are the greatest. The greatest in this universe are the children in this world.
Thank you, Debbie. And Denise, we give you the final thought.
In addition to what the ladies said, I want to encourage everyone to support the activities that are taking place for Child Protection Month. I know that there's a church service being held. They're going to be in schools. Information has been sent to the local clinics here in New Providence, as well as the Family Islands. So support the activities. ZNS, the radio stations, everyone will be playing PSAs. Especially more so during this month. So support the activities when you see them, when you hear about them. And most importantly, if you see something, say something. Can I give the numbers?
Yes,
the National Child Abuse Prevention Hotline is 322-2763. The SCAN unit, which is Suspected Child Abuse and Neglect Unit, the number is 359-0579. The Crisis Center for Information and Education and Training, it's 328-0922. And Bahamas Sexual Health and Rights Association, formerly known as Bahamas Family Planning, for programs and activities, 805-5043. So if you say something, if you see something, say something and support the activities.
Ladies, I want to say thank you for being a part of the show today and bringing the knowledge that you brought. And hopefully the seeds that were planted here today will have been planted in good ground that will bring up some good fruit of us to tackle this problem. It's 4:00. Got to get out of here. My time is gone. Thank you, ladies, for being here. That's going to do it for today's show. On behalf of all of my guests and all of my sponsors, thank you so much for being a part of GPS. Tomorrow is Wednesday. You know what that means. Wellness Wednesday, we're going to be talking about a matter that is important to your health. Don't you dare miss it. I'm Michelle Malcolm. Thanks so much for joining me today. And have a good afternoon, everybody. Take care.
Global 99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and guests and not necessarily the opinions of the owners of Global Communications Network and the operators of this radio station.
This is 99.5 Global FM, your number one